In the heart of London, a pregnant woman, blonde, serene, and heavy with child, rests in her home while a relentless rain batters the windows. She is on the phone with her husband, R, who is stuck in the city's thickening traffic. As the sound of rushing water echoes through the line, R jokingly assumes she is in the bathroom. She softly corrects him, explaining that she is simply filling a bathtub, seeking a moment of weightless solace before the baby arrives. During their conversation, she mentions the neighbors. They have already packed their lives into a camper van and fled. R is gripped by a sudden, sharp anxiety, suggesting they do the same, but his wife remains firm. This is their home. She isn't ready to leave. After hanging up, she sinks into the warm water, her hands cradling the life beneath the surface. She greets her unborn child with a whisper, a moment of pure connection amidst the low rumble of the storm outside. Later, dressed in a simple maternity gown, she watches the television until the grid fails. The silence that follows is eerie. She wanders to the kitchen, seeking a mango to quiet her hunger, when the first contraction strikes, a sharp, jagged pain that forces her to her feet. As she grips the counter, she looks down. Murky water is beginning to seep through the floorboards. The flood has arrived. Panicked, she calls R, but there is no answer. She dials for an emergency services, only for a weary operator to tell her that the entire city is underwater and the ambulances are overwhelmed. She is alone. As the pain becomes unbearable, the pressure of the flood finally shatters the windows. Glass and frigid water burst into the room at the exact moment her own water breaks. In a stroke of miraculous timing, an ambulance crew manages to reach her, whisking her away to a hospital that is rapidly becoming an island in a drowning city. A new life in a sinking world. At the hospital, R finally arrives, his face a mask of relief and exhaustion. He meets his newborn son for the first time, asking his wife if the labor was painful. With the stoicism of a new mother, she simply says no. However, the peace is short-lived. The hospital is being evacuated. A doctor advises her to try to urinate before they leave, a small, mundane task rendered difficult by the chaos. They learn their home is gone, swallowed by the rising Thames. While she sits in the hospital bathroom, the couple discusses a name. They settle on Zeb, a short, sharp name for a boy born into a world of water. They step out into the night, the rain still falling like a curtain of lead. Stuck in a massive exodus of vehicles, the radio reports that the entire country is submerged. The air is thick with the sound of honking horns, and the woman holds Zeb tight, whispering comforts to him as the world they knew disappears in the rearview mirror. The next day, they reach the edge of the city. In an empty, muddy field, she feeds her baby, the sky a bruised gray. They are heading for R's parents' house in the countryside, hoping for higher ground. However, the government has locked down the villages, allowing only residents with valid identification to enter. At a security checkpoint, a stern officer denies them entry. R pleads, explaining his parents live just beyond the gate, but the officer notes R's ID shows a London address. It is only when the mother shows the officer their 2-day-old son that the man's heart softens. He lets them through, a rare act of mercy in a hardening world. The shelter of the past. They arrive at the home of E and G, R's parents. G, the father, welcomes them with a mix of joy and "I told you so," remarking that they should have left the city years ago. R, an engineer, and his wife, a celebrity hairstylist, argue that their lives were tied to the capital. They were townies, as E playfully calls them, unprepared for the reality of the soil. E has been hoarding supplies for years, a survivalist streak that now seems prophetic. However, the sanctuary is thin. A local woman arrives, and E hands over boxes of food for the community. The blonde mother senses a deep, unspoken tension. She later learns from E that the woman's son is missing, a common story in the New World. Seeking a moment of normalcy, she takes Zeb to the grass, letting him feel the earth. She finds R inspecting a small outbuilding on his father's land, dreaming of repairing it so they can have a home of their own. He promises her they will build something new, but the water in his eyes suggests he knows the old is gone forever. As the months pass, the fresh start becomes a struggle for survival. They hunt rabbits and attempt to scavenge from the garden, but the vegetables are infested with worms. The national food crisis reaches a breaking point. Armored police guard food banks and rationing is strictly enforced. When their own hoarded supplies dwindle, R and his parents head out to find a government food station, leaving the mother alone with Zeb. Afternoon stretches into a terrifying evening. R and his parents do not return. A starving father and son wander into the yard, and the mother, moved by pity, lets them in and feeds them. When they beg for more, she has to find a cold hardness within herself, telling them she has nothing left because of her baby. They leave, but the encounter leaves her shaken. The next day, R and E return, but G is missing. R is a shell of a man, his spirit crushed. He refuses to say what happened, but when the mother checks the car, she finds a shovel stained with blood. The implication is the tragedy compounds. E, unable to live with the loss of G and the state of the world, walks out into the rain. Before the couple can stop him, they hear the crack of a gunshot. E has taken his own life. Left in the shadow of death, R decides they can no longer stay. They have no food and the memories of the house are too heavy. He suggests a government shelter. Though R originally feared the crowds, he eventually drives them to a facility teeming with desperate, starving people. Inside the car, the mother tries to remain optimistic, suggesting that their baby might bring out the best in people. R's response is chilling. They trampled on my mother's neck for a bag of pasta. He sees only the inherent selfishness of the starving. At the shelter gates, they are told only one parent and child can enter. R insists his wife and Zeb take the spot. He admits he can no longer protect them and promises to find them when things improve. With a heavy heart, she watches him drive away, disappearing into the mist. The island and the fog. Life in the shelter is a test of endurance. The blonde mother shares a massive sleeping hall with hundreds of strangers. She sees the worst of humanity, men fighting over pillows, the constant threat of theft. But she also finds a flicker of light in O, a dark-haired woman with a 5-month-old daughter. They form a bond of necessity and shared motherhood. O tells her about a commune on a remote island, a place started by wealthy friends who wanted to start over. One night, the shelter is raided by armed gangs. In the chaos, the two women flee into the night. They catch a ride with a reckless driver, but eventually demand to be let out, preferring the uncertainty of the road to the danger of the car. They are found by a man named Ab, who lives in an abandoned house. He feeds them and tells them how to reach the northern pier to find a boat to the commune. Ab is a man haunted by his own grief. He lost his family on a bridge during the initial floods because he waited too long to leave. After a night of drinking and dancing, a brief, beautiful lapse into the before times, Ab leaves them to return to the city, seeking some form of closure or perhaps an end. The mothers eventually reach the pier. For a long time, there is nothing but the sound of the waves. O begins to lose hope, but the blonde mother remains steadfast. Finally, a boat appears. An older woman named F takes them to the island. The commune is a paradise compared to the mainland. There's food, safety, and a sense of community. But the mother begins to notice something unsettling. The leader, F, wants everyone to forget the past. They are encouraged to live in a permanent now, erasing the memories of the people and places they lost. The blonde mother finds herself haunted by visions of R. She remembers their first date in a London bar, their shared dreams, and the simple joy of their old life. During a conversation with O, she reflects on why she had a baby. She admits she was terrified of her own mortality after her parents died, and wanted something of her own to live for. But even with Zeb, the fear remains. The turning point comes when the radio announces that the floods are receding and London is being rebuilt. While the commune members want to ignore the news, the mother feels a pull she cannot resist. She goes for a swim in the ocean, and as she dives, she hallucinates her old furniture floating in the depths. She realizes she doesn't want to forget. She wants her life back, even if it is broken. She informs F and O that she is leaving. F warns her that the baby might not survive the journey, but the mother is resolute. "I am his food," she says, pointing to her breast. She tells F that the commune isn't a sanctuary, it's a place of rejection. She wants to show Zeb that she made an effort to reclaim their home, rather than pretending the tragedy never happened. The journey back is grueling. She sets off on foot, scavenging a dead rabbit for a meal. At one point, she encounters a couple with a car who refuse to help her. Sensing their hesitation, she waits until they are distracted, slips into the driver's seat with Zeb, and drives off, leaving them stranded. It is a moment of cold survivalism that she jokingly tells Zeb never to repeat. She eventually reaches the borders of London, which are now under military control. To get past the checkpoints, she signs up as a cleaning volunteer. She sees the city she once loved, now a skeletal remains of its former self, covered in silt and posters of the missing. She finds her own name on the walls. She reaches her old street. The water has receded, leaving behind a thick layer of mud and the stench of decay. She enters her house, finding it a ruin. Her son's crib is still there, a ghost of the life they planned. She begins to clean, a primal urge to restore order to her world. Suddenly, the front door creaks open. A voice, familiar, weary, but unmistakably his, says, "Hello." She turns, tears streaming down her face, to see R standing there. He is alive. He is home. As they embrace, Zeb, the boy born in the flood and raised in flight, lets go of his mother's hand and takes his very first steps on the dry, solid ground of their home.